First of all, it's nice to do Tuesday mornings. I like to get to see everybody on Tuesday morning. Does anybody have any questions or anything that they're curious about? Maybe you have a better topic than I do, or anything you've had thoughts about, or questions about, or comments about, confusion about. Anybody enlightened?
Are some of the monks that have been here over the last few months, are they at some of these other places that are listed, like Nevada, Louisiana? It seems like faces have changed over, say, the last year. I just wondered if some of them are in other places.
Well, if you're talking, we had a lot of monks here on Buddha Day, and that the days before and after. And most of those monks are monks who used to be here, but now they're in some of those other locations. But right now, Bhante Sumana, who you probably think is one person you're thinking of, is no longer, he lives now out of the area, and he's no longer a monk. So he chose to become a lay person again. So he's still in Illinois, but I think he's living in Peoria right now. So he's not here, and Bhante Bhatia is traveling and visiting with his family in Sri Lanka. So he's coming back the beginning of July. So he's just temporarily away. So, but sometimes the other monastics you may see, especially for big events, they're from the other. They have been here before, but they're now out at some of those different locations. So that's somebody will be going out to Las Vegas, but there's a group out there that's a Blue Lotus group, but without a monk. And then in Pennsylvania, Bhante Somananda is there. And in Florida, there are 3 monks who were here at the very beginning. Some of the first monks who worked with Bhante Sujata, and they're in Florida now. And just this last December, they became a Blue Lotus group. So they just bought a building that's they'll be able to have a lot of their groups in. And where else? Louisiana, we have Bhante Dhammadasi. And he was here. And then the monks here, Bhante Asaji and Bhante Amita, who's not here right now, and myself. And now we have Bhikkhuni Dhammika. And she's a new face. So right now we have 2 nuns and 2 monks. And then in July we'll have 3 monks and 2 female monks. Bhante Sujata is always off somewhere, so I have no idea where he is. I don't go on Facebook, so the less I know, the better off I am. I'm happier not going on Facebook. That's a good question, thank you. Because you do see, it does seem, sometimes it feels to me like faces are changing all the time. But usually they're coming and going. And Todd, who works in the office along with Tessa now, and Tessa's a new face, Todd's been in Pennsylvania helping Bhante Somananda start the temple there. So now we get him back for a while, then he'll go back to Pennsylvania to help out Bhante Soma again. So we have to share him. We put him on a longer leash as well. And there are other people who are volunteers. We always need volunteers. And one of the things the volunteers do is help tutor the monks from Sri Lanka. And Bhikkhuni Dhammika is from China. And she was a Mahayana Bhikkhuni there. And then she came to Sri Lanka for more studies and became a Theravadan Bhikkhuni. So she's double ordinated. And so they have tutors helping them with their English, and we have, a lot of volunteers who are big chunk of the energy here at Blue Lotus. So it's good to know. Thanks for the question.
What is the difference between Mahayana and Hinayana and Theravada? Three different schools, right?
Well, Hinayana, we don't use that term anymore. That's basically was a Mahayanan term, and it's really what we call Theravada now. So it was, I think, kind of a derogatory term. It was like the old school. It was like the old monks, the elder monks. But that the Theravada is what used to be called Hinayana. And maybe your first talk when you do a Dhamma talk can be about Mahayana Buddhism. She's working on it. So all Buddhists are essentially, we have the same, we're all students of the Buddhas, of the Buddhist teachings. But the Theravadins we are considered old school, but that's a good thing, right? I mean, we go back to the Buddha's earliest recorded teachings. So we focus on the things the Buddha taught and the things the Buddha said. And so if you Google what the Buddha taught or what the Buddha said, what the Google said, that's that'll be next, right? But if you Google what the Buddha taught or what the Buddha said, you get amazing number of resources. And a friend of mine was doing that because she's taking the precepts, and she also found some of the books on our precept list in a PDF form. So I don't think you have to really buy any of these books if you can search the internet. But I think the main difference between the Theravada tradition and, for me, and Mahayana is that Theravadins tend to stick with the teachings of the Buddha, and we have lots of wonderful teachers who have come since the Buddha, and but we're looking at how they maybe are commentaries to what the Buddha said or expound on what he said, but we always keep going back to the teachings of the Buddha. That's our primary focus. So the earliest documented teachings that are considered the origins of Buddhism. And Mahayana tradition has other teachers, but we'll let her talk about that one. But they have added some things to the original teachings of the Buddha. But we all are students of the Buddha, and we're all trying to live according to the way the Buddha taught, to live a moral life, and the Eightfold Path is part of all the traditions, and the Four Noble Truths are part of So the essential teachings of the Buddha basically are the Four Noble Truths, and a really profound experiential understanding of that, and the Eightfold Path, and the 10 perfections, or we call them sometimes the Bodhisattva vows. But those are the essential teachings of the Buddha. So the precepts are part of that essential body of teachings. So morality, when we talk about the precepts, and I talk about it all the time, all summer long, to prepare for the October precept ceremony, it gets a little tiresome maybe, but the precepts are basically the knowledge and getting on the path of experiencing all of those essential teachings of the Buddha. And it's a good way to look at, how do I study what the Buddha taught? Begin with the Four Noble Truths, and then that moves you right into, because it talks about suffering and the end of suffering. And the end of suffering we find from moving into and living the Eightfold Path. And then that Eightfold Path includes the 5 precepts, the 8 precepts, and the 10 perfections. So all of that is part of how the Buddha told us, if you live this way, if you live with this, the Eightfold Path as what you constantly are getting back into that path, like we're not doing it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but we're usually working on some part of the 8 all the time. And if we're on that path, that's the way out of this other wheel that we're on, that's samsara, that's just that endless circle of life and death, life and death, life and death, That's samsara. That's the way this world operates. But the Eightfold Path, which is always pictured in a circle, is like, that's an alternative. If we want to get off that wheel of samsara, then the Buddha's teachings about the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and all of the teachings on virtue and morality, that's how we start and finish getting off of this attachment that we have to the world and everything in the world. So it's the essential part that we're trying to get and understand. And once we understand that part, everything else is just a beautiful additional teaching that helps us then go deeper, and then we get back to the essential teachings and we keep going, into a more subtle understanding, and we see it more in our life and how everything we do we get instant feedback, closer and closer. That feedback is, we're knowing if what we're doing is skillful or not skillful. Because the feedback we get, we start getting it pretty quickly after, we get more sensitive to our behavior and our speech and our action and how we are in the world. So I think for all the different schools of Buddhism, that should be the essential basic part of their practice. It's easy to be a scholar, because there's so much written. And the Buddha lived a long time, so he had so many teachings. So it's very easy to get totally into a track of being a Buddhist scholar. But that doesn't mean you're a Buddhist practitioner. So I think we have to keep, a balance between the two. To me, a balance between those two is really, if we want to be a student of the Buddha's teachings, and that means we have to experience everything he talks about. It has to become our own personal experience. And we're lucky because we have a teacher and there's so many writings about what that teacher taught, that gets us going on the path, but then we have to experience everything he told us was out there. But he didn't tell us so we just took it on faith. He said, now I'm giving you, here's the way the path starts. And now you have to walk the path. So I think that's the wonderful part about the teachings of the Buddha. It has to be that we experience everything he taught us. We have to experience it and validate it within ourselves and see that it works, see that what we experience is working for us to help our lives be transformed, to be happier, to be able to let go, we're letting go of stuff all the time, the stuff that we don't need, and the stuff that isn't helpful. So that's the path that all Buddhists should be. I think if people think of themselves as Buddhist, part of that means that I have to actually experience what the Buddha talked about. So coming to a temple is not as important as maybe going to church on Sunday is, or going to a synagogue is, because we come here just for our own, a beautiful place, a quiet place to come and practice, and we come to learn how to meditate, but Bhante Sujata will often say, "Why are you here?" He comes back from a long trip and he'll say, "Why are you coming here?" And it's always kind of jarring. I think he's just trying to remind us that this is an active path. This is a path where I don't think he's trying to tell people don't come to Blue Lotus, because then we just wouldn't even need the building. But we have to always think about, why are we here? Like, are we letting just this beautiful space and coming here and meditating once in a while, are we letting that be what we think of as following the path of the Buddha? Or are we living that path? Are we living it in our everyday life? And we come here to recharge, to rejuvenate, to refresh ourselves, and then we go back out into the trenches. And that I think that's the reminder that he's trying to. I hope that's the reminder. I don't like to entertain the other thoughts that come to mind. That's why we have to keep this building going. I see two.
I've been struggling with one of the precepts.
That's good.
Okay. The one about not killing. And there's a story we've heard at least twice about someone who was predicted to not live long, but when he was out in the woods, he saw some ants that were drowning in a stream, so he rescued them, and then he ended up prolonging his own life. It was I really got that story. It was a nice story. But now I discovered, I think, some ants eating our house. And I can't get in there by hand, pick every one and take them somewhere else. So we're going to, the answer is to call a pest person to come in and take care of it. But it's the conflict that, I feel like I'm being hypocritical or something.
Now, I think that conflict is part of the life as it is today. Like whenever the potential is always there when we build a building, when we build a road, when we, build a park. We're always there are always living things that are being killed. When we drive a car, when we walk down the street. I think when we have things that are destroying the home we live in, I think if there isn't a humane way to relocate them, like maybe if it was a nest of bees, you could relocate them rather than burn them out, which is what people tend to do. But the Buddha always tells us that this is a middle path. He's talking about moderation in everything we do. And there were actually other spiritual groups during his lifetime who were really extreme. They were either mortifying their own flesh, or they were not eating right because they were only eating what fell to the ground. They were being so extreme. And that was part of his reason to talk about a middle path. That we have to live in this world, and sometimes we have to make tough decisions like that. And what we can do is see if there's any kind of humane alternative. And sometimes if we want to have a house to live in, we have to get rid of the creatures that are eating it up. And I don't know if anyone else has a different opinion about that, but we have this old building is always having to have work done on it. So, like we have bats, and I think we try to get rid of the bats humanely, but I don't know if that's always going to be the case. If they start swooping, it's. But if we have to keep making repairs on the building, so we have to, there'll be times when we may have to deal with that. We're killing mold all the time, or trying to, but I don't know if mold counts as a one of those beings we have to be careful about. So I think what you have to do is make a judgment. There's so many things like that. We have to make a judgment that feels like it's appropriate for the kind of life that we live. We can't go to the extremes either. We don't want to be just trying to. I notice where I live, but it's an apartment building, so I don't have any control over it. They are spraying and killing things all the time where it seems unnecessary. And they don't even put up signs saying, we just sprayed toxic stuff, don't let your pets walk on it. And so it just seems like it's overkill. And that I feel like is excessive. It's not good for the planet. It's not good for the people who walk and the animals who walk or live in the grass and in the earth. So I think a lot of that is definitely could be cut back, and everybody would be happier and live longer. But when you're really considering and thinking about it, I think that's the important thing. And the decision you make is based on the right information. But you can't let your house be eaten, right? Nobody wants to do that. That's you.
Yeah, I've been working for a long time on loving kindness, and I seem to be really along the path, and I get a lot of joy out of loving. The question I have is that for some reason I don't feel love, and I don't know how to make somebody love me. I know how to love somebody, but I don't know how to make somebody love me. And I was just wondering, am I going to? Is there a way to shift this? You know, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I would truly love to be loved by somebody, but it doesn't seem to be happening. And it's either because I don't see what it is, or I don't even know what it is. I grew up in a horrendous childhood and all this stuff, and alcoholic for years, and I'm very, very. I don't know what it is to be loved. I really don't. And I was wondering if there was any. I know how to love, but I don't know how to be loved. And I was just curious if there was. Because I don't have a long time left, you know. So if it's going to happen, it's going to have to happen. I have to do. No, see, there's it. I have to do something. How can you do something to make someone love you? I don't get it. I know how to. Love.
Yeah.
I know how to do something to be loved, to love. But I don't know how to do something to make somebody love me. So.
That's an interesting question. I don't.
40 hours. No. This is not going to be in 2 minutes.
Is there a Mahayana teaching?
Yes.
Can you talk about it?
No, I don't know how to teach in English.
Okay.
I know there is four ways to make other people love you.
There are. Okay. Yeah, that'll be it. You could do a whole class. So she said, now, Bhante Asaji, do you know those 4 teachings in our tradition? Yeah. Yeah, well, that's okay, well, to be continued. So at least in the Mahayana tradition, there are 4 teachings of how you can have people love you. I don't know specifically anything that the Buddha taught. He does say that the benefits of loving kindness practice are that people are attracted to you. And I think he's talking about your presence becomes safe. You know, people are attracted to you because you're open, and you probably have an aura that's very feels welcoming to people. But I don't know if those are the teachings are. But she's going to work on that. We're going to crack that nut.
I think later I can give you materials to you. You can teach that.
Okay, until you're ready to teach it. She'll give me the materials and we'll look at it. That's a very interesting topic. I hadn't thought about that. But keep doing the practice you're doing, because I would think that's certainly the way to be. Then you might have to just go online and find somebody. Spread your net out further, right? Okay, we'll get more on that. That's good.
It's another hard one to say. So I know it's some really difficult people, and they think that they're very loving and kind. Then they do things, and then they kind of like throw it up in your face for being kind. You know, like they were kind to you, and then they get mad because of what they did, and then they seem very resentful for what they did, and then they like take it out to me, and I feel like I'm being kind to them, and I don't feel like I did anything wrong to them. It's just like I don't know how to deal with those kind of extreme like personalities, like you know what I mean?
I think so.
Yeah, it's like the being loving, kind, out of the goodness of their heart, but
Not really, yeah.
For like recognition, and then they're not being loving, kind, and then they throw it into your face, and it's like, well, why did you do that in the first place?
Right.
You know, right?
Like someone who does a kindness to you, but if you don't appreciate it, or that's the same as giving someone a gift. If you give someone a gift and then you have expectations of how they're going to like the gift or how grateful they're going to be, and then you don't react the way they want you to react, then they're angry.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
they're generous just for themselves,
Uh-huh.
and they don't realize, you know, that they're being hurtful by, they don't realize what they're doing.
Right. That's basically they don't realize what they're doing. I think that's hard you can't change people like that. You have to be able to not take it personally. The Buddha often talked, there are different stories about if someone would come up to the Buddha and start being really angry and saying all kinds of mean things, and they would wonder why the Buddha didn't react. And he would use the image. He would say, if someone, you prepared a wonderful meal for someone and they didn't eat it, you offered them this generous gift and they didn't eat it, what would you do? And he said, well, I would just, take it back. And he said, well, I'm going to let you take back. Like he wouldn't own their anger or their whatever they were shooting at him, whatever barbs they were shooting at him, he would not accept it. It was like a gift. If someone doesn't want a gift, then you would give the gift back to the person who gave it to you. So you need to be not taking their behavior personally. That's the most important thing you can do. If they don't seem genuine when they offer you something, probably better not to take their offer, or even, it might be better to just recognize that person usually has other ideas, other goals. But if they end up being upset with you because you didn't respond the way they wanted you to, you can just see that as a gift that you couldn't accept. You're not going to take that on personally, their anger or their frustration. You have to give that back to them. You just have to not accept it. So that means they have to take it back. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they're just, they've done nice things, and it's like a year and a half later, and I can't take it back. You know what I mean?
They've done something nice for you, and then later they're saying, but I did this for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like later on,
Yeah, those are your difficult people. So one, you can put them in your loving kindness practice, but then you have to maybe back away from those people. Be sure you don't. You have to understand the nature of how they're operating, and just be careful. And then when they do come back and they become upset with you because of something they did nice for you a year ago or a week ago, and you're not reciprocating or you're not grateful enough, you know it's important to try not to take that personally. For pretty much everything, a good rule of thumb is don't take anything personally, because that's not the way you want to behave. You can see it as kind of wow, I don't want to be that way to other people. But the biggest thing that we do is often to take things personally. It doesn't need to be about us. It doesn't need to be that we take it in. Just because someone's giving us that anger, they're giving us their irritation, we don't have to accept that gift. You can say thank you for your opinion. Sometimes we have to be really careful about those boundaries we set for ourselves. Don't get caught up in the way they think. I know that's hard to do, but try to just work on it little by little. Okay, I think our time is up. Yeah. So thank you, everybody. Good questions.